In this video, taking a look at the primary results for August 14th, 2018. And this video is going to focus on the statewide elections for the states of Vermont, Connecticut, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and particularly the statewide governorships primaries as well as the Senate primaries. And going to go over the results here, taking a look at the total voter numbers, and also going to give my take on how I see these races potentially playing out going towards the midterm. So starting off with the Vermont governorship on the Democratic primary side, considerable turnout and actually significantly more than on the Republican side. And this is one of the more interesting races, probably along with maybe the Wisconsin governorship matchup that I'm going to be talking about in this video. But so on the Democrats side, they had over 56,000 votes. On the Republican side, they had over 35,000 votes. So a difference of about 21,000 votes, which is pretty considerable. Christine Hallquist going on and winning, and an interesting note about her, she's a transgender woman. So if she goes on and wins the governorship, it would be the first LGBTQ community person to go on and be governor of a state. But going to be an uphill battle for Hallquist going against incumbent Phil Scott. And you might look at the difference in this primary turnout and you'd say, well, the Democrats have a great shot at picking up this governorship. But interestingly enough, the Cook Political Report has this rated as a solid Republican seat, and I have a bit of a disagreement with that, and there's a couple of reasons why, and they both revolve around Bernie Sanders. So you can see the big gap in turnout difference here, and a lot of that is probably fueled by the fact that Bernie Sanders was in this primary as well. He's a beloved figure across the state of Vermont almost universally, almost grabbed about 95% of the vote, and Bernie Sanders, he's going to be on the ballot in November, which is going to increase enthusiasm and turnout on the Democratic side. So that's going to likely boost voter turnout for the governorship as well. That maybe wouldn't be there if Bernie Sanders wasn't running for the Senate. So that's something to definitely keep in mind for that governor matchup. Of course, in terms of this matchup between Bernie Sanders and whoever ends up winning this Republican primary, it's going to be a safe win for the Democrats with the independent Bernie Sanders, who's going to continue to caucus with the Democratic Party. But you can see an even larger gap here between these Senate matchup primaries. So you have a little under 25,000 votes compared to a little over 66,000 votes, so over a 40,000 vote difference there between those two primaries. But again, another thing that could help Hallquist is how much weight Bernie Sanders puts behind her candidacy. I feel like if he goes out and endorses her, campaigns for her, that can have another big impact as well. So the Cook Political Report, like I said, has this as a solid Republican governorship, but I feel like it's going to be a bit more competitive than that. We'll see how it plays out. All right, moving on to the state of Connecticut, and this is listed as a toss-up governorship. And in terms of the voter turnout, again, you're getting quite a bit more on the Democratic primary side by about 60,000 votes. Ned Lamont showing that he still has a bit of political clout there in the state of Connecticut, winning convincingly, while it was much more competitive on the Republican side with their winner getting, right now he has a little under 41,000 votes compared to Lamont, who has over 163,000 votes. And just in terms of these primary results, you probably have to give this at least somewhat of a slight lean over to the Democrats. That's a considerable gap in the difference in turnout in the primaries. And also another thing to bring into consideration for this is the Democrats didn't even have a primary opponent or challenge to Chris Murphy. So in general with these primaries, the more options you have to vote for somebody in a competitive primary, the more likely you're to go out and vote. So the fact that the Republicans did have a primary on the Senate side and they still had considerable less turnout is probably playing pretty well for the Democrats here as well. But also you have to consider this is the state of Connecticut, so you're in general going to get better turnout on the Democrats side anyways. It's a state that has representation that's Democratic across the board on the federal level. All 5 of their congressional districts, as well as their 2 senators, are all from the Democratic Party. So that's also something to keep in mind for this one. But again, even though the Senate matchup isn't likely to be very competitive, going to be more of an interesting competitive result here in this governor's race, but you'd probably give the lean to the Democrats at this point if you were to bet on it. And we have kind of a similar situation over in Wisconsin, where just going down to the Senate matchup first, this is listed as a likely Democratic Senate seat here with incumbent Tammy Baldwin. But again, another situation where you don't have a competitive primary in the Democratic side compared to the Republican side. So there's a little less incentive for the Democrats to come out and vote in this one. But you're still seeing here, as we go up to the governor's matchup, better turnout on the Democratic primary side than the Republican primary side. So Tony Evers going on, he was expected to win this one and grabbing over 40% of the vote in what was a congested primary, certainly there on the Democratic side, and the Democratic primary having a little over 515,000 total votes cast with a little over 92% of the precincts. And again, you compare that over to the Republican primary side that has about 430,000 votes cast. So a considerable difference there of about 85,000 votes right now. They have the incumbency advantage with Scott Walker, but again, the difference in the number of votes right now in this primary is a positive sign for the Democrats. This is listed as a lean Republican governorship, and I feel like the Republicans are getting that from the Cook Political Report because of their incumbency advantage. But after seeing this turnout, I wouldn't be surprised if it went over into the toss-up section. And then also the Senate matchup, the polling data that I've seen always had Vukmir underperforming against Baldwin head-to-head in comparison to Kevin Nicholson. I'm not sure I agreed with that polling that I've seen, but either way, it was pretty close between Vukmir and Nicholson and how they were doing against Baldwin, usually down by well over double digits, usually maybe about 15 points or so. But Leah Vukmir, the establishment-backed candidate, going on and winning, particularly winning the more population center areas in the state of Wisconsin, while Kevin Nicholson able to win some more of the rural areas. But the establishment going on and winning this primary, going to be a tough challenge for them against the incumbent in what's listed as a likely Democratic seat here. So that's one step below solid Democratic there. And that's all I wanted to cover there in the state of Wisconsin. Now the state of Minnesota, which was a great sign for the Democrats overall across the board. So we had 2 Senate primaries and a governor primary, and all of them had tremendous turnout for the Democrats. So as you can see here in the governor's race, this is also listed as a toss-up governorship, and I wouldn't be surprised again to see this move over a couple notches at least, given the stark contrast in the voter turnout here. So on the Democratic side, a little under 570,000 votes. On the Republican side, a little over 310,000 votes. Tim Walz versus Jeff Johnson, and Walz also getting about 70,000 or so more votes than Jeff Johnson. Moving on to the U.S. Senate, incumbent Amy Klobuchar is listed as a solid Democratic seat, so pretty much going to run away with this one more than likely. And again, those turnout differences continuing to be very stark between the two parties. Jim Newberger challenging Klobuchar, and then going down to the U.S. Senate special election, Tina Smith was expected to win this one. She did very handily, getting over 420,000 votes, and Karen Housley was expected to win this one as well, getting over 180,000 votes. And again, a big discrepancy between the total voter turnout on both sides. So again, these are 2 seats that are listed as very likely to be with the Democrats. The special election seat is listed in the likely Democratic section, and then the Klobuchar, the incumbency advantage, that's listed in the solid Democratic category. But across the state of Minnesota, very strong signs here from Democratic voter turnout. If that continues to play into November, then it's looking like a great sign for them, and where they have a number of these statewide elections. And again, across the board here with all of the governorships and Senate races, the Democrats had pretty considerable more turnout than the Republicans. So for what it's worth, it is a pretty strong sign for the Democrats at this point. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I'm also going to make a video that takes a look at the competitive House districts, so you can check that out as well. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Check out all of my analysis and prediction videos over on my YouTube channel. Subscribe for more. Hope to see you guys back here for future videos.